My first job in my entire life, I was 13 years old. And I started coaching sports at 13 and I found a passion for it. I just loved it. The people who were running those companies or running those camps, they gave me a lot of compliments on my coaching energy. And so I guess that might have pushed me in the direction of leadership roles. And I've got 3 older brothers. Something that I've always wanted in my life was a little brother that I could raise, that I could show the ropes. I was always being shown the ropes by my mentors, by my older brothers, but I didn't have anybody to pass it on to. So maybe that's why I got into coaching. That's something for Freud to figure out. But I do love coaching and I do love sports. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Athletic Startup Podcast. My name is Mark Burik. I have just retired from a 13-year pro volleyball career, and I have a thriving business called Better at Beach Volleyball, where we do online courses, we run events and huge camps for people both domestically in the United States and internationally. And as I go through this process, I realize that there's so many people who absolutely want to turn their athletic or fitness passion into a job. I was able to do it successfully. Every day's a grind. I haven't mastered it, but I love it. I'm doing something that I want. I'm working with the people that I want to. Everybody who I actually work with or work for is happy to see me because they want to do what I want to give them. Everybody that I work with is happy to see us. We have happy customers because they actually want our service. I'm not selling them something that they don't need or they don't want. They come to me because this is their passion, and I get to share my passion with people who are passionate about the same thing, and I think that's an awesome way to do business and life. So I started playing beach volleyball professionally, and if you know beach volleyball, you know it's not really a high income sport like so many others. We have to battle with baseball, football, basketball, and you see these monster salaries, but for a lot of the other fringe sports, or even if you drop down one level in those high tier sports, the salaries are significantly below minimum wage. And a lot of athletes who are in one of those low paying sports or are just a level below that top grade, you have to figure out something else to generate income or generate a future for yourself. And that's what I had to do. And I had worked for several beach volleyball vacation companies before I started my own. So I had a little cheat code. I got to work under some mentors while getting paid to do it. And so I was able to look at a lot of these problems that I was going to face, and I knew some of the solutions before I got into them. That was one of the advantages that I had. Now, how did I get into volleyball in the first place? Well, that's a long story. My first sport was tennis. And believe it or not, my first job in my entire life, I was 13 years old. And I started coaching sports at 13 and I found a passion for it. I just loved it. The people who were running those companies or running those camps, they gave me a lot of compliments on my coaching energy. And so I guess that might have pushed me in the direction of leadership roles. And I've got 3 older brothers. Something that I've always wanted in my life was a little brother that I could raise, that I could show the ropes. I was always being shown the ropes by my mentors, by my older brothers, but I didn't have anybody to pass it on to. So maybe that's why I got into coaching. That's something for Freud to figure out. But I do love coaching and I do love sports. And even though I'm in volleyball now, that isn't necessarily my end all be all. I love all sports. And now that I'm retired from playing professionally, I'm getting to play a lot more. I'm in jiu-jitsu right now. I'm playing tennis right now. And every now and then a little bit of pickleball. But I'm enjoying being able to get to play all sports like I did when I was a kid again. So as far as my sport history, I started playing out tennis. Like any kid in New York, I was playing a lot of basketball. I was playing a lot of baseball. And when I got to high school, it was all baseball and football. And then I played 1 season of volleyball my junior year. I had to quit baseball in order to play volleyball. And a whole bunch of drama between the athletic directors and the coaches. And they said that they were stealing athletes. Nothing to do with any of those guys. And they're all pretty gracious. But it was just me wanting to explore a different sport. And if you're an entrepreneur or if you're an athlete, you know what that's like. You know that you have to give up something to explore the what ifs in your life. And I hated the idea of not knowing what volleyball could bring to my life. I saw the whole future of baseball. I saw the whole future of football. And I was like, okay, that's a predictable path. But I had no idea how good I could get playing volleyball. So I decided to do that. And it was a great year. I ended up getting hurt midway through the season, but we had a pretty good run. And then the next year, I went right back to baseball. Not because I didn't enjoy it, but it was because I actually enjoy being surrounded by high-level, hardworking, hustle people. The guys that were there when I joined the volleyball team were willing to put in extra hours before school, at lunch, after school. They wanted to stay after practice, and they wanted to work hard. When we got to my senior year and I started increasing the workouts for the team and trying to organize outside tournaments, I didn't get anything back from the guys that were remaining on that team. And so I said, you know what? I was one of the better players on this team this year, and it was my first year playing the sport. So that told me not that I was good at volleyball, but maybe I was just playing with sub-tier athletes in this sport. So I decided I wanted to be above average around excellence instead of being excellent around average. Maybe you felt that way in sports, and hopefully you feel that way in business. If you're an entrepreneur or if you're a leader, you have to surround yourself with people who are absolutely better than you, because that's going to raise your level. And that's something that I've fought to do my entire life. I'm actually taking a sales and marketing course right now where I'm surrounding myself with people who are way smarter, way more experienced than me. And so my life is just a constant state of being an athlete learner, even though it might not be in sports. Right now it's in business. So all of that being said, I went to college to play football at the University of Delaware. Played there for 1 year, did not like the vibe, did not like the guys on the team, the culture, but at the same time, there were some dudes playing volleyball. At the same time, there were some dudes playing volleyball at an open gym. I asked to play with them, and they were the men's club team. And so my sophomore year, I decided to drop football, and the rest has been non-stop volleyball from that point forward. I actually stayed an extra year in college because I had a redshirt year, and I knew I wanted to go pro, and I knew that I wasn't ready to go pro after my first senior season. So I used my redshirt year, got a year stronger, a year faster, a year better, honed my skills, and that led me to a pro contract coming out of college, and my first pro season was in Sweden. And from there, I played indoor in Sweden for 2 years, Norway for 2 years, and Croatia, which was awesome, but that was also one of the times that really pointed me in the direction of never having to work for a bad boss ever again. I did not like the manager. He was also the coach, and I actually got to exit that team the way everybody wants to. I punted a ball at my bad boss, hit him, and in that day was removed from the team, and I'm still pretty happy about it. I know some of you say that I could have handled it better, but I saw this guy taking salaries away from new fathers for reasons that I could not agree with, and so I knew at that moment that I was always looking for good bosses, and it would be tough for me to work under poor leadership. And maybe that's another thing that pushed me in the direction of this. So if you have bad bosses, if you're sick of poor leadership, if you think that you can do a better job in your industry or for your hobby, your passion, then you should be an entrepreneur. You shouldn't deal with that. You should go and chase something. You should go and build something. I'm not saying drop it all like I did in one day, but start building your own future. And if you're into that, then you're listening to the right podcast, because what we are going to do here is we're going to talk to people who have turned or want to turn their athletic or fitness passion into a business for themselves. Whether that becomes a side hustle or a full-time gig, that's up to you. But those are the conversations we're going to have here, and I hope you enjoy the conversations.
You can go into a little bit more about the journey to becoming your own business owner.
I was enthralled the entire time. I could not even pull that kind of information from your website about you and your journey. That was so wildly interesting about you going to college for freaking football.
That's what this podcast is all about.
You should throw this on your website. Man, that's so good.
How you got started, your love and your passion for volleyball. We can talk a little bit more about pivotal moment or decision in your own journey of transforming passion so you can start talking about your fitness, athletics, sports into a thriving business.
After my time in Croatia, I ended up playing at Oslo Volley again in Norway. And while I was there, I ended up getting a contract the following year back to Sweden. So I played different years for different clubs. And I started thinking, what's my best path to the Olympics? And I thought that for myself, the best path to the Olympics would be beach volleyball. All you have to do in beach volleyball is convince somebody really good to play with you and then win. Now, you could say that that would be similar for indoor volleyball, but because there's going to be 7 starters for indoor volleyball, there's 6 on the court, but there are 7 starters. Weird story if you don't know volleyball, don't worry about it. That relies on you getting picked by coaches. So in the US, all you have to do to get to the Olympics for beach volleyball is win, 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 win. You sign up for any tournament you want. So long as you keep winning, you keep going. It's not like that for all federations. Some federations get involved and they select their teams and pick their teams. But for indoor volleyball in the US, they are selected by coaches. And I knew my athletic archetype. I was not the most powerful. I was not the highest jumping. And there were guys that could hammer the ball. So I thought, what's my best path to the Olympics? Beach volleyball. And so I had to retire from indoor volleyball and pursue beach volleyball full time. But now, at this point, I knew I wasn't getting a salary. And that is when I had to decide how I was going to make money while pursuing my Olympic dream. I had worked for all of those beach volleyball vacation companies in the past, and I said, hey, I'm going to California, the mecca of beach volleyball, and there's got to be other people who are willing to lay it on the line, make that move, and they need training. They need a place to stay. And I had done this during the summers. When I was off from indoor volleyball, I went to California and I played beach volleyball. But my first summer in San Diego, I went out there. I was pretty good at volleyball. You show up on the sand and you're just bumping to yourself next to the courts alone, hoping that somebody will ask you to play. And they don't. And they won't. You have to insert yourself and you have to show up and you have to keep asking people. So eventually, yes, I found my way onto a court. Somebody had to leave early and they're like, hey man, we need a body. Will you play? And I ended up playing good enough that day to get the invite back. I knew from my experience in California that it is not easy to show up to a new city, to show up to the mecca of beach volleyball and just find games, find a coach, and know where to go. I probably spent about 2 weeks of my 2-month summer just looking for players and looking for coaches. So when I went back to play indoors and I had made that decision to play beach full time, I wanted to solve that problem for everybody who was under me, who was wanting to go to California for the first time and probably didn't have the balls to just go and live on somebody's couch. I wanted to make it easier on people. So I said, you know what? I'm going to make a company where in one click, you have your housing, you're living with other athletes who want to do the same thing, and you've got your coach ready to train you. So I wanted to take out all of the obstacles that come with pursuing your beach volleyball dream in California. It was great, except for the fact that there's about 7 people a year who do that, and they're all just graduated college with 0 money. Not a great way to frame a business. So what did I do? I started creating an Airbnb, not quite legally, out of a few apartments. That was going great. I was Airbnb arbitrage before it was a thing, so I was able to actually book a lot of people who are not volleyball players into these Airbnbs. And at one point, I was renting and re-renting 4 different apartments. I would sleep in whatever bed or bedroom was open between all of those. I just accepted whatever booking there was, and the woman who is now my wife deserves a round of applause from anyone listening, because several nights she stayed at my place on a queen air mattress in the kitchen because all of the beds and rooms in my apartments were booked. That was some wild time. Well, we put it together and we started changing the business and we started molding it. You know, it became part Airbnb, part volleyball camp, and eventually, once I got evicted from every single place, I decided that there was a better way, and we started making relationships with hotels and making it easier on ourselves in the business to say, hey, we'll provide the training. Here are some great hotels that you can stay at. So we cut out that part of the business, and that made life a lot easier. So fast forward a few years and I became a regular on the AVP tour, which is the professional beach volleyball tour in the US. And I was grinding on the business and in my pro career at the same time, and I ended up earning a top 100 ranking in the world, which was really cool. We won a continental championship, and I was, for a long time, one of the top 10 teams in the US for beach volleyball, and I absolutely loved it, but it still was not paying the bills. So I had to keep doing the business and I had to keep coaching. And so our coaching programs really blossomed from there. People who were watching this from afar, because I just kept throwing it on Instagram. They were saying, hey, we live here and we want to be coached by you. Can't you run classes for us instead of every out of towner that there is? Yeah, all right, let's do that. So we started doing classes every day, lessons every day, and I started hiring some extra coaches for when I had to go play tournaments, and I was fried. And I think I fried myself for a solid 8 years. And I was able to still play on the Pro Tour, able to keep the business alive, but it wasn't thriving. And this past year, I knew I had a daughter on the way, my first kid, and I knew that my goal in life has always been to be the father, not a father, the father, the one who's always there, the one who's always supportive, the one who you never miss because he's always around. And I didn't want to play beach volleyball anymore because I wanted to be there for my family. I had been on tour for so long. I knew everything that was happening. I'd had every adventure you could have in beach volleyball. And so it was a perfect time for me to retire from beach volleyball. I said, I don't need to play anymore. It's not creating enough value for my future. I'm not learning anything new fast enough. And I thought that there were so many other places in my life that I could just keep learning quickly and adding value to myself. And even though I'm wearing a volleyball on my chest, I don't want to be the guy who on his gravestone is written, Mark the volleyball guy. I think my life is about so much more. I want it to be about so much more. So that's when I decided, okay, it's time to retire from playing and it's time to see how we can take this business full time. And that's what I've been doing for the past year. And the difference has been immense. I'm not exhausted anymore. I am thriving. I have enough time for my family, for my wife, for my daughter. And the business just keeps growing. You realize everybody talks about scale. Scale, 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 scale. If you're working in your business, you can't be working on your business. I had to learn that, but I think I had to learn that 7 or 8 different times because there's a creative bucket that you have, and it has a limited amount of creativity. So I was coaching, I was playing, and I was trying to grow every aspect of my business. So in order to play, you have to be creative in your training, you have to understand what you have to do on the court, and you have to, a lot of times, design your own practice. Then I was coaching. You're dedicating all of the creative energy to all of your players, all of your athletes, and you're figuring out practice plans for people of all levels and achieving all of their goals for them or helping them get their goals. Then a business, there are 13 problems you can attack every day. By the end of any one of these, your creative energy is zapped, and you need to find that time to give other people coaching or other people parts of your business so that you can actually be creative and see the next step. So I will say exactly the same thing that everybody else has told every starting entrepreneur. You have to figure out a way to open up your time, and as soon as you do a task 2 or 3 times, how do you unload it and give it to somebody else? Start writing it down. Put it on a Google Doc, put it on a Google Sheet every step of the way, from opening your laptop, you can put that in your Excel sheet, to clicking on a certain tab. As soon as you have it written down, you can hand it to somebody, and then that opens up you for your next step. And it is a very hard thing to learn. It's very hard to let go of your tasks and let go of your hardworking nature and proving to everybody how hard you can work and that you can do more than them, but you're shooting your own self in the foot. So make sure that you're able to actually scale by giving other people tasks. And for me, that meant, number 1, hiring an assistant, number 2, hiring an editor, number 3, hiring coaches. And now, maybe one of the most popular volleyball coaches in beach volleyball, I hardly coach at all. I run my business more than anything, and because of that, now we have thousands and thousands of athletes who are learning from us. And so we've increased our influence and decreased my coaching, which is a little wild to think of. And I want you guys to be able to do the same thing.
I watch a lot of people's content, and yours is very, very enthralling and very entertaining. Like, I'm hooked, and I swear if this gets to like more eyes, man.
So you started doing the business. Let's talk a little bit about that. How fulfilling has that been? How has it given you more time? Have you been able to travel more? And then go into how your passion for bringing that to others.
You've had on any of your students, like,
yes.
Who do you specialize in? People of all ages? Is it like semi-pros or going to pros, college students, stuff like that? Like, kind of expand on that a little bit. You know, 2 birds, 1 stone. You're talking about entrepreneurs, and you're also expanding on your business.
Constantly have in the back of your mind, who needs to hear this podcast? So you sharing those different target audiences, you say it.
You know, I think a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, we think of them as money obsessed. And if you get into beach volleyball, you really are proving by that step that you're not money obsessed. And there was one moment that I had that I think turned me on to attempting to make money for the first time as somebody who had played volleyball and beach volleyball their whole life. Like I said, wasn't at all concerned about money. But then I was taking my brother on a drive through Palos Verdes. It's in Los Angeles. It's this green hill that overlooks the Pacific Ocean. And as we're driving through that, we're about to go on a hike down by the shore. And I started looking at all of these houses and homes that looked at the Pacific Ocean for their sunset and sunrise every morning. And for some reason, once I saw all of those houses there, I knew that somebody owned these houses. And then I thought about standardized tests for whatever reason. In New York, we have these standardized tests, and I always got really high grades. This isn't a brag, but I was getting like 98, 99 percentile. So I'm not that much of a dummy. And I thought, how come this many people have that much more money than I do? And what can I do to get on that level? I logicked it out and I said, they can't be that much smarter than me. There can't be that many more people who are doing it and that much smarter than me. So they must just be hitting an easy button. And that's when I started looking for how can I generate revenue in an easier way instead of grinding. And I started looking for different types of income potential. I knew that beach volleyball was not a high revenue thing. So I said, you know what? I'll make enough money coaching and then I'll convert it into an easy button. And for me, that easy button became real estate. And I started listening to a ton of a podcast called Bigger Pockets. It's a great podcast all about real estate and finance and building your wealth. And I took, so far, still to this day, I take every dime that I make from my beach volleyball stuff and I turn it into real estate. And right now I've got 7 doors, 7 houses, and I'm not rich by any means, but I know that I'm taken care of for at least a decade if I didn't do anything right now. To me, that equals a little bit of freedom. It equals a lot of comfort. And now I don't have to worry about bills and rent every single month. And I'm building something for myself. So in that way, I'm almost an entrepreneur that has multiple businesses because I have all of this real estate and I've got my beach volleyball stuff that is feeding that. So I'm feeding it into a higher revenue, easy button for myself. And maybe you want to follow that path too. That real estate stuff is for another episode. We'll talk about it another time. And if you guys want to hear more about it, let me know. Shoot me a review, throw it into the comments, and I'd like to hear if you want to hear about my real estate journey more. We could talk about it in another episode. But I want to talk right now about the type of people that we do coach. Like I said, there are a handful of players that will move to California, put everything on the line just to become great. Those players have extremely low income, and so you can't build a business around them. So I had to learn what the right customer was. And by the way, we don't call our customers. We call them players or athletes. And I make sure that everybody in my entire company refers to them as not clients, not customers, but they are athletes or players. That's a choice you can make. If you don't want them to feel like customers or clients, and you don't want that type of relationship with them, you'd rather be friends, you'd rather find a way to support people, then find a different name for them. And you'll see that relationship blossom in a very different way if you just name it something different and then the rest of your company also refers to them like that way. You can call them superstars, you can call them buddies, you can go Montessori school and call them friends. Your choice. For us, we call them players or athletes. Now, because those players didn't have much money, we had to figure out other solutions and we had to start coaching other people. We've eventually found that the bread and butter for us, the people who are able to spend money on volleyball and are ready to go on vacations and ready to go to training camps, they need a little bit of money. So we're looking at 25-year-olds to 55-year-olds. And a lot of them are people who are obsessed with the sport and got obsessed a little bit later. The problem in beach volleyball, and probably all sports, I would say, is there are so many coaches available for kids. Juniors have tons of coaches. No matter what, you sign up for something, there is a coach there. As an adult, do you go to teach you sports? You got golf lessons, you got tennis lessons, and I guess now you have pickleball lessons. But there's no one else out there running teams for an adult where you have actual practices where you get better, where you improve at things. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to give adults who are learning the volleyball late an opportunity to actually improve at their passion. And there was a huge void there. and we have filled it quite nicely. So this is a good lesson in learning your customers and learning who are the wrong customers, who are the right customers. This is kind of weird because although I played pro and now I've coached several pro athletes, I've had a few of our campers who have moved out to California and pursued the dream. I started out coaching them and then they became my competitors. There are a couple of athletes who I have lost more money to in competition than I made from them by coaching them. Sore topic, but also a funny one. These guys, came to me, paid me money, said, hey, teach me the game. And I did. And I teach them so effectively that they knocked me out of tournaments and took my prize money away. So I have coached pros, I've worked with pros, but also you have to know that if somebody's pursuing professional beach volleyball and they're not currently the top 10 in the world, they don't have deep pockets. And to me right now, I feel almost bad about coaching pros and charging them. But what happens when I do coach professional athletes is everybody else sees that relationship that I have the ability to coach them and that I'm in the box in pro events. And that means that everybody else, all of those lower customers or like the B, A, AA, that means amateur players, they're like, man, I want to get coached by him because he's coaching at the highest level in the world. So although the professional athletes in my sport are the ones that will give me the least amount of money, they might be the highest value just because of that marketing or view. And so that's what I'm doing now. And I do it really only with friends, like the guys who are on tour that I was competing against that I got along with. I coach them, I give them my brain, I give them my advice, I give them my time, but I'm not taking their money. I want to support them in their mission to go to the Olympics, to be the best in the US. And if I can give them some coaching dollars at our camps, of course I do that. In a lot of cases, I've paid more money to professional volleyball players than their professional volleyball career has given them. And that makes me really happy. It makes me proud. And it means that I'm supporting people who had the same dream that I did when I came out and when I was younger. Sometimes we see these huge transformations. And the times that we don't see the huge transformations are the times when people just don't commit to that change. So we're always looking for people and customers who are committing. And every day on our website and in our forums, we are trying to find questions that either push people away who aren't willing to put in the work or really show them, hey, if you're willing to put in the work, you're going to see a monster change. And we've had people come to us as A and AA players, which means intermediate to advanced, and made it all the way up to the AVP tour. We've got Doc Locke, we've got Jake Arrutia, who took some 9s and 7s on the AVP. He was one of our first campers in California 8 years ago, and now he's a mainstay on the AVP. This year on the AVP tour, I got to be in the box when we took Travis Mayweather and JD Hamilton to their highest ever pro finish, a 7th at Hermosa Beach, which is the toughest beach to play on. And Logan Weber and Hagen Smith, guys who have been playing for a long time, I got to be in their box and help them get to a semifinal in Manhattan Beach, which if you are a beach volleyball player, Manhattan Beach is our Wimbledon. It is the tournament that you want to perform at. And together we were able to get a semifinal finish in the toughest tournament in the US. And I want some more of that. I do want to keep coaching pros, but I also don't want to be away from my family. So I don't think that that's in my future to actually travel or coach in the Olympics or anything. I don't want to lose out on months with my daughter and my wife. So I will coach these teams while I'm at home, and I'll run our training vacations and our online courses and our online programs, because the people who are in those are seeing similar transformations. They're getting faster, they're jumping higher, they're stronger. I get all of these texts, and this is my favorite part about Saturday night and Sunday morning. I get so many text messages from our members and athletes who have been able to apply different things that we showed them and actually get these tournament wins. They beat teams that they've never beat. They beat opponents that they've never beat. And I get a lot of joy from that. I always say that I love seeing somebody do today what they couldn't do yesterday, and being a part of it. My favorite part about being a coach, and for me, it really doesn't matter if it's in sport, in business, in marketing. I'm also helping my brother who's got his own company. He started a few years after me, and I'm actually helping him with his company. And now I see his emails upgrading. I see his blogs, his website upgrading. And every time I get to be a part of somebody's transformation, it's magic for me. I love it. I know how much effect coaches have had on me in my life, and I want to have that same effect on other people. We all remember our coaches. We all remember our teachers. The people that pass you or people that you buy from or anything like that, they aren't really a tangible part of your life, but the coaches and the teachers in your life, they build you and they are inside you forever. And that's what I want to be as well. No dirty jokes intended.
Now, I think that this is all great and you're going into the business aspect of it. What I really want to hear is, if I'm listening to this, yes, you've shown your credibility, you've shown your past, but am I coming to you so you want to help businesses, that entrepreneurs that are fitness, sports, what has it that, do you have like a specific point where it's like, this is what I've gone through, so therefore I have the credibility to now teach you how to have a thriving business?
Away from coaching in the volleyball space to coaching maybe even some of your clients into expanding a business or passion they have outside of volleyball.
Yes.
Like, have you done any of that and expand on that?
Yeah.
But not too much, but like, you know, you can kind of throw hints in there. Like, how long is this video right now?
Yeah, I would just want to expand a little bit because we are niching down a little bit on volleyball. So just expand a little so that way the viewer can be like, you're answering their question of like, well, how can he help me?
So we've talked a lot about volleyball and sport, and I know that you are watching the Athletic Startup Podcast or listening to the Athletic Startup Podcast. So how does this all tie in to business, entrepreneurship, and how did I even get there or turn there? Like I said, a few years into my business, my brother started his own, and like I said, I love seeing those transformations. Anything that he did, I was able to look at his coffee roastery and his coffee subscription business and see all of the mistakes that I made. I did the same in my sport, made tons of mistakes, and now I get to coach somebody else and save them all of the time, all of the pain, all of the wasted money, all of the losses. I did that in volleyball, and now I found myself able to have that same mentality for my brother's business. And so anytime I saw him performing, right? Anytime I saw him send out an email, anytime I received some of his coffee subscription. By the way, if you want some excellent coffee roasted in Hawaii by the best grows and roastery in the world, check out Tradition Coffee Roasters. So here's what I did when I saw everything that my brother was offering and everything that he was doing. I started writing him a text. As I was writing him a text, I realized that this was turning into pages. So I put down my phone, I copy pasted it, and I got it over to a Google Doc, and I got onto my computer instead. And I just started seeing everything, each mistake or each upgrade that he could make. And once I had written it all out, I had written about 8 pages. And I said, oh my God, this has been 6 years in business, and I still feel like I'm growing, like I have so much room to improve in my business. But look at how much I learned, that I'm able to offer 8 pages of advice that I know will earn him more money, save him more time, and help him grow his company. And since that, he has doubled the size of his company, and now he's growing. He's got his own path, and every now and then I can still step in and I could say, hey, I see that you made that change. Now let's alter this. Let's alter the subject lines. Let's put the most interesting part of your email subject line at the beginning instead of at the end so that it shows up on your phone. When you send me a coffee, I want to see a QR code so that I could go right to your website, or maybe a buddy pass so that I can give my friend this coffee. And he started applying all of these things, and I said, this was fun. Working with people who I want to work with, who are following, again, the same path that I followed, and the idea that I can save them from pain, save them money, and save them all of the mistakes that I made, and give them an advantage and an upper hand, and they will be appreciative of that. I'm just putting my entire volleyball coaching on replay, but now in another realm. And now it's in business and marketing. And one other story from that, little coaching story, is I saw one of my good friends, Kyle Friend, who was a competitor on the AVP, is a competitor on the AVP. He's top 10 as well. He started selling some hats called Friend Brew hats because his last name is Friend and his partner is called Tim Brewster. So they called Friend Brew. And they were thinking about like maybe they could start a beer company or whatever, but they just wanted to sell some hats to support their next tournament so that they had some travel money. And he said, he put out a post on Instagram. He's like, hey, we're making hats. Who wants them? And I said, there is a much better way to do this. So I gave him a step-by-step way for him to sell his hats. I told him exactly the words that he needed to post, exactly the rhythm of them, how he would take payment, what options he needed so that he could stop all of that thinking. And he went nuts on this. And in 3 days, he sold 120 hats. And he was like, man, I never would have been able to do it without these tips, and I wouldn't have known how to price it. I wouldn't have known how to market it. Thank you so much. And I promised him, I said, listen, dude, if you do exactly what I say, I will be the first person and I'll buy 3 hats, all of the colors you're offering. He's like, all right, dude. And I kept that promise. And, I was able to share with him, somebody who was in a startup himself. He was in a partnership where he had a marijuana grow. And I was able to give him the advice that got him quick, efficient sales so that he didn't have to get discouraged and go through the pain. And so all of those experiences are wetting my beak for this marketing and business coaching. And that's why I started this podcast, partly to help you in your journey and partly to be my own personal university. The more people that I can talk to, the more I can learn. Like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I'm a forever learner. I'm a constant student and I can improve myself. And the more that I can improve myself, the more I have for my daughter. When she grows up, as she grows up, I can teach her everything from all realms of the world, and I know that it'll be sound advice, not just something that I made up along the way. So the more I equip myself with knowledge and experience, the better parent, teacher, coach I can be, and that's constantly on my mind. And I hope that you are a forever learner too, and that we can grow together through this podcast and these episodes and all of the guests that we bring on. So I appreciate you guys listening to that episode. Again, my name is Mark Burik, and this is the Athletic Startup Podcast. If you want to follow me on Instagram, just head to @MarkBurik, MarkBurik, or you can visit our website at athleticstartup.com. And until next time, we'll see you out there.